If you're watching this channel, I'm guessing it's because you are, in one way or another, a fan of horror, just like me. And we all kind of had to get started somewhere, right? I figured it'd be fun if today I shared with you some of my first and favorite childhood memories of horror and how I got into this stuff in the first place. My first, like, scary memory when it came to horror was not a positive one at all, and I'm kind of surprised that I became a horror fanatic later on in life because this was the first thing to really freak me out. I remember at our old house when I was really little, my parents used to put me to bed and then they would go back downstairs and watch whatever like crime dramas that they were into at the time on TV. And I hated going to bed. I hated missing out on things. I had serious FOMO as a kid now that I think about it. I just didn't want to be left out of anything fun, and I was always curious about what my parents would watch on TV after I went to bed. So occasionally I would sneak down the stairs and peek through the railings on the stairwell and watch whatever they were watching on TV. And of course this ended up backfiring. There was one night when I snuck downstairs and I looked through the railing to see the beginning of an X-Files episode. Now, I did not watch X-Files as a kid and only recently started watching it as an adult, probably because this memory freaked me out so bad. I remember seeing some kind of like pale alien creature kind of thing through a sewer grate right before the theme song started. Someone recently told me on Twitter that that wasn't actually an alien, that was the Leech Man, and I googled it and they were indeed right. It was the Leech Man, and I can totally see why that would freak me out as a young child. So I just had this image of the Leech Man through the sewer grates on the TV, and then the theme song started right away, and I bolted up the stairs and went to sleep and was too afraid to sneak downstairs ever again. And after that, my parents ended up figuring out that all they needed to do to get me to go to bed is play the X-Files theme song, and I would just run my ass to my room and immediately go to sleep. So it kind of ended up working out in their favor. It wasn't long after that though that I started consuming horror content that I really liked. I remember my dad showed me the film Psycho, and I just thought it was like this cinematic masterpiece, and it was the most ingenious film I had seen at the time. I was kind of a teacher's pet in high school, honestly, and when I was taking this film class, my teacher ended up coming to me and asking me what movies we should watch in class, and I brought up Psycho, and last that I heard, he's actually still showing that movie in that class to this day, so I'm kind of glad I brought it up, and also I learned a lot about how uniquely that movie was filmed and like how groundbreaking it was for the time. So it actually wasn't that bad of a choice for a film class, and that's pretty cool if you ask me. I also have this really distinct memory of the movie The Sixth Sense, and I know that I was already consuming horror on a pretty regular basis by the time I saw this movie because I was playing some video games that were maybe not age appropriate for me, and I had seen some films that were definitely way scarier than The Sixth Sense, but I very distinctly remember watching The Sixth Sense at my uncle's house, and I had just gotten to the scene where the little boy gets trapped in, was that an elevator shaft? What was that? He gets trapped in that little doorway in like the old house at the birthday party. And right when that scene happened, my mom walked in the room and like totally lost it that I was watching this movie and made me stop watching it like right away, and I wasn't sure if this was like an exceedingly scary film, but now I'm kind of wondering if my mom had actually seen that movie because it was definitely not as scary as some stuff that I had watched with her. So I think that maybe she just hadn't seen it yet and had just like blown it out of proportion, but it kind of worked because I never ended up watching the movie until I was in college, I think, and obviously I had heard about the plot twist and I knew what was going to happen and everything, but I didn't actually watch the full movie until I was an adult. And I remember thinking, like, why was this one such a big deal? I'm sure my mom is gonna watch this and be embarrassed that I told that story, and also she's probably gonna do that thing where she's gonna pretend that that never happened because she doesn't remember it, because she only likes to remember the things where she was a cool mom. But it's okay, Mom, you're still a cool mom, but that did happen. You did make me turn off that movie. I remember. Speaking of horror movies around that time, I started getting really into scary movies in the early 2000s, and there's some that I watched, I believe all of them with my parents, and they just had a huge impact on me, and it's hard for me to look back on them now and figure out if they were actually genuinely good films or if I just had a really positive outlook on them because this genre was so new to me, and every plot twist was like totally new to me, and I had never seen these concepts before, and they were probably already really tired, but I really liked them, and these movies had a huge impact on me. Specifically, I remember Panic Room, Glass House, The Others, and Hide and Seek. I remember watching those with my parents, I believe all during times when we were like renting movies as a family, and they decided that I was old enough to start watching scary movies with them. And I think those were all pretty age appropriate because I was like in my preteens by the time those came out, and they were definitely scary, but I think that it was good to like challenge me and challenge the content that I was watching at that age, and it also helped me turn into the weirdo that I am today, so no regrets there. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But that being said, my biggest, most significant, and favorite horror memory is playing Silent Hill 1. I love that game. Now, if you watched my video about movies that I probably shouldn't like, you've heard most of my Silent Hill rant, because I genuinely really liked the Silent Hill movie because of how strong my positive memories about Silent Hill the game are. But that game was so genuinely impactful, and it taught me at a young age like what horror is actually supposed to be, and it was so well done. Like, the atmosphere was so immersive and genuinely terrifying, and the storylines were so genuinely creepy, and there was something about the fact that your worst fears and the things that you were having the hardest time facing in your life as the protagonist in those games were turned into these horrifying creatures that were haunting you and chasing you through this like hellish version of the real world was just like so genuinely creative and terrifying, but in a way that just intrigued me and interested me and didn't give me nightmares, but made me so excited. I genuinely wanted to like jump back in and start playing the game every single time I started, and I would have dreams about playing it, and I would get so excited for that next time that I got to pick up the PS1 controller and get back into it and figure out the next part of the puzzle. It was just such a beautifully immersive game, and the couple times that I've played it as an adult, I still agree with my opinions on it that I had as a kid. Some people might say that I was way too young to play it when it first came out. It came out in 1999, so I was around 7 years old when it first came out, and my dad bought it right away because he was so excited about it. But it really taught me the difference between things that you can be afraid of because they're in your imagination and things that you should be afraid of because they're in real life. And I think that at a certain age, it's important to teach your kids the difference between real life and imagination. And maybe some people might not agree with the method of showing horror games and movies to your kids at a young age, which I understand. I get it. You don't want to give kids nightmares. You don't want to expose them to like gore or creepy concepts. You don't want to turn them into like the weird kid at school either who's obsessed with like morbid concepts. But at one point or another, kids have to realize like what scary things exist in the real world that they should really honestly be afraid of, and what scary things live in their imagination that they can just kind of have fun with. And instead of being afraid of these things that you make up in your imagination all the time, maybe just view them as like thrilling. You can get the same excitement out of the monsters under your bed as you do with your imaginary friend. They're all things that you make up in your head as a child, and you get the same adrenaline rush from being excited about things that are fun versus being excited about things that are scary. And I think it's really healthy to figure out a way to process those emotions and be afraid of things that you're really supposed to be afraid of. I could literally talk about this concept and how Silent Hill taught me all of these things for hours, but I'm just gonna leave it there. I love that game. It is by far the most impactful piece of media that I consumed in my early years that had an effect on the person I am today and the things that I genuinely enjoy today. Please let me know in the comments down below if you're also a big fan of Silent Hill and how old you were when you were exposed to it, because I'm really curious to hear if it had as big of an impact on some of you as it did on me. I know it had a big impact on a lot of people because that franchise has been beat into the ground. Hollywood and Konami have not been very nice to Silent Hill, but it still goes strong and people still have such a deep, passionate love for it. So I know that it affected some people the same way it affected me, and I love that. Also, let me know in the comments down below how you guys first got into horror. I'm really curious to hear other people's experiences, and I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing about mine. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button down below to let me know that you'd like to see more stuff like this. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you want to see more of me and more of me talking about creepy things, then hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.